You should give yourself the gift of silence at least once a day. Welcome, everyone, to Parking Lot Philosophy, the only show where the limited amount of space on my phone means we may or may not get through this episode. Um, I had all sorts of ideas for what to talk about today, and it's been raining a lot lately, and a really great rain, and so I just kind of sat in silence for a little bit before recording. Um, I don't know how often people do this. I love to sit in silence. I think I probably inherited that from my dad. He's one of those guys who, when he's done with the day, he sits in the car for about 15 minutes and just kind of relaxes because so much is going on. I don't have so much going on. I just have a lot of thoughts all the time through my head. So when I talk silence, I mean proper silence is like almost meditative. Not thinking about projects or ideas or things like that. Not listening to something like a podcast or watching YouTube or music or anything like that. Um, Not even really like visually. I mean, mental silence as much as anything else. You should give yourself that at least once a day, and not before bed. I'm this should be like a part of your day. Um, I really love silence. I think a lot of times I like anyone else though tend to not give myself enough. Um, I am someone who sorry, I was worried that we wouldn't quite see me. Um, I am someone who, I watch a lot of YouTube. I join in Twitch streams. I listen to music. All of these things are mental drains on me because I'm constantly consuming noise. And that being said, silence is one of those things that I rarely give myself on a daily basis, and I need to so much. I mean, it's so peaceful. I mean, the rain is the reason why I did it today. I was just kind of watching the rain and kind of chilling. I had a little bit of an earlier start this morning. But that's one of the things. It's really calming. It's really nice. Finding that little bit of time throughout the day really is not hard. I'm not talking about, sit 30 minutes and meditate. I'm saying, like, give yourself a minute or two of just not thinking about what projects you have, what happened in the past, even what's going on right now. Not listening to anything, not visually like consuming anything. Just kind of that moment of reprieve, and you will recognize very quickly how, I don't know, refreshing it is. And if it's not refreshing for you, as in like it gets you existential or things like that, I want to say if you get existential or scared or things like that during silence and you constantly have to have something going because of that, that is a problem. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Like, legitimately, that is a problem. Those feelings of like existential dread or fear when you're in silence, or, the trauma that you bring up when you're in silence, that is all a wound. You have an infection mentally that you are not dealing with. And so just because you're constantly putting gauze on the wound doesn't mean it's going to heal, right? An infection does not just, I mean, it heals, but you can't just keep putting stuff on an infectious wound. You have to clean it and get rid of the gunk. Just like with anything in life, if you are pushing down a bunch of trauma and stuff, you will eventually explode. So that's why I find silence very comforting. I try to think about the things that stress me out or give me trauma or things like that. I try and work through them. And so silence for me is very relaxing. I know for a lot of people it can be very stressful because they do start to think about these things, like their financial situation, their relationships, their past, their future, their everything. Um, but really giving yourself a moment of silence can be very powerful. I know too, um, so much of everything today is trying to buy your attention, whether it's algorithms are trying to vie for, how much time you spend on the platform, whether it be advertisers literally popping ads in your face, trying to get you to buy their product, whether it even be people. I mean, a lot of times too, I have people where it's, they don't mean to necessarily, but they are taking up my time. And so that's one of the things. Everyone's trying to get your attention. So sometimes it can be so relaxing just to not have to worry about that for a bit. And it lets you think more as well. If you're not thinking about the situations you're in, you're never going to solve them. If you don't even know that there's a problem there, how are you going to solve it? And if you sit in silence, you will find yourself thinking a lot more clearly. You'll find that it's a lot easier to solve problems as well. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And the thing is, too, I can tell the opposite very easily as well. When I do not have silence or that kind of moment of, clarity, it's really tough for me to work at work. That's one of the things. My vent in my office, especially during the winter, is just constantly blaring. And so all this sound all the time, I can't seem to focus or anything like that. So then I'll go to a quiet space to just reset, think for a bit, and then I can still go back into my noisy office and still get things done. It's just that I need to kind of set that up for myself. I also wanted to talk about a little bit of thinking with silence. I think what I'm talking about is you should just let yourself, live in silence. Just However, after you come out of that silence, I think it's really important to think about things. Um, and I'll probably make a full episode about this a little bit. But so many systems in society right now are built to make you not think very much. And the thing is, I sound like a Facebook conspiracy theorist when I think slash say these things, but it's the truth. Um, the government does not want you to think too much because then you question if this system is we the people. Why is it that our municipalities are not, you know, a government organization? Why are our utilities? Why is it that we can have a monopoly on, we've got six mega corporations that own everything, and yet we can't give small businesses very much money. Instead, we give it all to those mega corporations. Why are we saying we can't tax the rich, but we can tax the poor? Why are we, why are tickets, speeding tickets, fines, things like that, why are they a set price and not percent based? There's all these questions that you start to think up when you start to think. And I think in the same way, you also think of not even just the government systems, but the technocratic systems. You start to think, why do I spend so much time on YouTube or on X or on Facebook? And yet I also feel like that time is wasted. Why do I feel bad about myself when I spend that time that way? Why is it that one of the first things I think when I pull out my phone is to go to this app or to go do this thing? Why is it that, when I'm not doing anything, I can feel relaxed? But when I'm doing something that could be considered like an entertainment or relaxing, I don't. I feel like I'm doing something. All these questions, while somewhat vague, you start to think about after you have that silence. And I do want to talk further about this point. I think I'll write in my journal about it a bit. I have in the past. But that's one of the things. I think if you give yourself the gift of silence, you're also going to give yourself the gift of thinking. And I think sometimes we misconstrued thinking with knowing. I don't know that these systems are like that or things like that, and I don't know everything about them. So I'm not going to say that, you know, utilities being a government. This was an example that I've thought about for a long time. Like, I don't know why, if we can only have one electric grid, why the government just doesn't do electricity. There's probably a reason. There's probably an argument out there. And that's one of the things. I don't know why it is. And so then I start to think of those questions, and then all of a sudden I can start doing research. All of these things lead in service to making you a better person, more in an intellectual way than anything else. But I think a lot of times anyone can be smart, anyone can think about things, and anyone can know things. It's just a lot of people don't give themselves the opportunity. So if you think about it, silence is like the medium, the soil in which you plant your seed of knowledge, and then you can really start to actually access it and things like that. So anyway, take a moment of silence. Don't necessarily think about anything. Try to even focus on right now. One really great way that, I've kind of used throughout time. My wife says it feels terrible and she hates it. So maybe you can find like a short meditation video, or focus on your breathing. But one that I always do is I just kind of sit and I kind of rest in a comfortable way. And then I start from the bottom to my like toes, and I try and feel everywhere where my skin touches against anything. So whether it's, my toes where they like kind of touch together a little bit, how the sock is wrapped around my foot, how my shoe wraps around the sock, how the ankle is like the kind of edge of that sensation, but also how my shoes, right now I have them kind of set like this against each other. I can feel that with the pressure on my skin, and then I work up my legs. Right now I'm wearing shorts, so normally you'd feel pants there, but and then because I'm in a car, my legs are leaned against my console and my door. And so I can feel like the edge of the plastic there, and you just slowly work up and kind of think about all of the different places, my hair touching on my head, all the different places where something is touching your skin. And it can, for me, it allows me to not have to think about anything else. And so it can be really, really helpful in the silence. But, take a moment, relax, give yourself that time. Bye for now.